Welcome everybody to the 35th episode of Comic DNA, on which we will be discussing Battling Boy by Paul Pope, first published by First Second Books in 2013. I am very pleased to welcome two returning guests to this show. For this episode, we have my good friend Mr. Time Albaugh, creator and co-creator of many of the New Haven Comics characters and writer of The Celestial. Tim, thanks you for being on the show.
Not a problem.
And my second good friend, Mr. Alex Harner, who is an amazing artist in his own right, but he's probably more known as being my X-Men discussing partner in crime. And he's glad to have him on the show.
Good to be here.
And making his first appearance on this show, I am super excited. Not, Tim and Alex, you guys, you're not chopped liver, but you're no Mr. Kevin Bandt, and I am so excited, to have Kevin on the show. Kevin, thank you for joining us.
No problem. I'm sorry it's taken so long for this to happen.
It is what it is. I understand, trying to get people's schedules together and whatnot. For listeners who are listening to this episode, Kevin and I have worked together on a number of small occasions, and notably, we've done a comic called Relative Space, which is available in my science fiction anthology, Science Hero. He has also provided illustrations for my illustrated children's novella, King of the Road. And
which is one of my favorite things that we've done together, and my wife's favorite thing.
Oh, thank you, Kevin. That's great to hear. And Kevin and I we're actually working on a new project right this very moment called the Amoral Stingray, which I don't like to talk too much about, like future stuff, because you never know what's going to happen. And we've actually been trying to get this going for a while now. I kind of announced it like at the beginning of the year that we were going to be working on it, and it's taken some time. But we're finally going on it, and hopefully, I expect it'll see print early 2016. So that's going to be a fun book. I'm really excited to do that one.
Very cool.
Yes. So I'm very excited to have Kevin on the show. Been trying to get this for a long time now, but Kevin and I are both working men. It happens.
So it goes.
But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Battling Boy by Paul Pope. So my first question to everybody here, and I already know some of the answers, but when and how were you first introduced to Paul Pope's comics? Alex, we'll start with you.
Okay. So the first Paul Pope comic I actually read, my dad picked up for me when I was, golly, I don't remember, maybe freshman in high school.
Wow.
Dang.
And it's weird because at the time I knew nothing about Paul Pope.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad had picked up this Batman comic. I'm forgetting the exact issue and title. But it was sort of an Elseworlds story that later got published in the back of Batman Year 100.
Oh, that was the World War II Batman.
Yes.
Oh, man,
yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah. My dad picked that up because he had read through somewhere else that Pope liked Ludwig von Mises.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my dad was like interested in the economic side of it, and he knew I loved comics, and he picked it up for me, and I was like, okay, this is kind of different style, kind of unusual, some funky historical allusions.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like curious, but I didn't really put two and two together until many years later when Batman Year 100 came out, and I really liked it. That was like, I just picked that up on my own, and then after reading that, I kind of started to search out his other work and went from there.
That's neat. That's such a perfect story. Like your dad buying you a Batman comic because he heard that it had sort of like this like conservative connection. So he's like, I'll get my son likes Batman. I'll get him interested in this.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, neither of us knew anything about Paul Pope as this sort of underground auteur guy who was sort of experimenting with comics and self-publishing. But Batman and free market economics, and go from there.
That's all you need for some people. So that's really cool, Kevin. Like, when did you first become a disciple of the Paul Pope?
Oh, I would say the first thing I remember seeing, like, was a backup in Ecstatics. Do you remember? It was like
yes.
it was Peter Milligan.
Yeah, Peter Milligan and Mike Allred.
Mike Allred, yep. And I'm a huge Mike Allred fan from Mad Men and all the way back from like Tundra when he was doing it back then. And so I was like, yeah, I don't really read X-Men anymore, but this looks different. And then there was a backup in, I forget which issue, but it was Paul Pope. And when I first saw it, it kind of was upsetting. It was uncomfortable.
It's jarring compared to Mike Allred, that's for sure.
Oh, I think especially back then, the way he drew faces was like, it was weird. These men had these like big puckered lips and the bodies were all spindly and it's very different from where he gets to, currently with Battling Boy and the stuff he's doing now. But back then, man, it threw me for a loop, and I was like, this guy's weird and good, and I like it. And from there, I followed him pretty close. He hit me at a right time. I gotta say, it was like 2003 or 2004, and I'm in art school at that time, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's pretty good. and I just sort of fell in love with it after I got over my being uncomfortable by it.
Yeah. Tim, is Battling Boy the first Paul Pope comic you've ever read?
Battling Boy is the first Paul Pope comic I have ever read. I was familiar-ish with Paul Pope because you and Alex talk about him a lot, and I knew I've known a lot. I mean, I know of Batman Year 100, and I know what it's about and everything. But I've just never got around to reading it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm obviously the newbie here when it comes to Paul Pope because Battling Boy is the first Paul Pope I've ever read.
Well, that's good. That'll be a good perspective to get when we're talking about the book. I myself, I've been a fan of Paul Pope's for a while now. Alex, I'm almost positive you would have been the one to sort of turn me on to Paul Pope. I remember the Ecstatics issue that Kevin is talking about because I was buying X-Force at the time, and then when it switched over to Ecstatics, I stopped, but then I went back and bought all the issues secondhand, and I remember that was after Alex had turned me on to Paul Pope, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Paul Pope. Because the thing about Paul Pope is that he's one of the most lauded and praised, like you said, Alex, underground artists, stylistically, but you can never find any of his books on any shelf anywhere. He's like the unicorn.
His old stuff especially is
Paul Pope is like
weird.
A unicorn in the comic book industry.
I think that has a lot to do with the fact that he wasn't that lauded up until recently.
Exactly, yeah.
When he was doing those backups, he was just looking for work, I think. I mean, he wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that long ago he was doing exactly what I'm doing,
right.
working on a press. He worked at a printing press in Ohio,
Has he ever really had a long run on a mainstream book?
No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
I think his most high profile work would have been Batman Year 100.
Right.
Yeah, mostly it's shorts or it's his own graphic novels, which are, 6 issues max.
Yeah.
Something like that. But he does seem to kind of, I like that he sort of hovers around mainstream characters. Like he likes Batman, he likes the X-Men. You see his stuff, but he's generally pursuing his own longer stories.
Right, and even in Battling Boy, there was a lot of it had a lot of mainstream tropes and feels to it.
Yeah, well, let's just talk about Battling Boy. Battling Boy, I'll give a brief synopsis of the story. Essentially, it is, I would say it's a modern superhero story for, I don't want to say it's for kids. We'll say it's an all ages superhero story.
That's a good way to put it.
And it's about a young boy, 12 years old, who's on the cusp of being a man, and he is a I forget what they call him, but he's basically like a demigod. He comes from this like society out in space where they're all like super adventurer warriors and they travel the galaxy and fight monsters and whatnot. And he gets sent to Earth as his like proving grounds, where he has to save Earth from all the monsters that are just mysteriously, for unknown reasons, just have been attacking the planet. Just monsters showing up and attacking the place. So
it's sort of an alternate.
It's
Earth.
an alternate Earth. Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's Earth-like.
It's Earth-like. I should say that. Yeah, and it's sort of like a dystopian, post-apocalyptic kind of a setting, because it's basically like there's just one giant city, and it's in ruin because there's always monsters showing up and destroying it. And then like the other side character is West. Well, there's Haggard West, who was the city's previous hero, like the main superhero that was protecting the city. And in the course of the story, he dies, and Battling Boy is going to take over as the new hero.
Spoilers, man.
Spoilers. I think the death of Haggard West.
It happens almost immediately.
Right. It's kind of the main plot.
It's in the summary of the book when you look at the dust jacket.
Exactly.
I think he actually published as a promotional piece the first few pages of Haggard West being killed as its own issue, and it was called
The Death of Haggard West. Yes.
So maybe you can't really call it spoilers. It's just a plot setup.
But yeah, Tim, you were talking about how like there's a lot of like mainstream superhero tropes, and part of that comes from like we talk about Paul Pope. He's such an interesting guy because he's such a his influences. He's got a lot of European influences. Mm-hmm. He's not like a mainstream superhero Marvel and DC comic book kind of artist, but he is also hugely influenced. One of his favorite artists is Jack Kirby, and so he is hugely influenced by basically the founding father of all modern mainstream superhero art.
Yeah, you can tell that just by looking at Haggard West. I mean,
sure.
It's totally a Jack Kirby character.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think a lot of this is Pope playing homage to Jack Kirby. Just with the different realms. Like if you I know Tim, I don't know how familiar you are, but if specifically with the Jack Kirby stuff that he was doing at DC in the 70s, like the Fourth World stuff,
the New Gods and all that.
Yeah. That is like Paul Pope is clearly drawing a lot of influence from that kind of stuff.
He also Jack Kirby wrote a lot of stories where boys were protagonists too.
Yes, he did.
Like Kamandi and stuff like
that.
Yeah.
Actually, it's very interesting that you bring up Kamandi, because I wanted to talk about a lot of the similarities between Kamandi and Battling Boy. Kevin, we were just previously talking about you had been reading some Kamandi.
Yeah, I've been trying to grow my Kamandi collection. I've got quite a few of the first dozen or so issues with some holes in there, but you can clearly see, like, this is what he was thinking about. This is what Paul Pope was thinking about when he made Battling Boy.
For sure. I'm a huge fan of Kamandi. I think it might be Jack Kirby's best work. And it's very interesting. I don't know if you guys were aware of this or if you remember this happening. Right around the time Battling Boy came out, around 2013, Pope did an interview, and he was talking about his time at DC. And this would have been around 2007, maybe 2008, right around the time Batman Year 100 came out. And this is a quote from Paul Pope. He quote, "Batman did pretty well, so I sat down with the head of DC Comics, Dan Didio. I really wanted to do Kamandi, the last boy on Earth, this Jack Kirby character. I had this great pitch, and Didio said, 'You think this is going to be for kids? Stop. We don't publish comics for kids. We publish comics for 45-year-olds. That
was a huge controversy.
If you want to do comics for kids, you can do Scooby-Doo.' And continue.
Which would be awesome.
Which would be great. Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
I would pick up. I mean, I don't like Scooby-Doo, but I would read that Scooby-Doo.
That'd be amazing.
And Paul Pope's final thought. Paul Pope says, "And I thought, I guess we just broke up."
I've heard that quote before. I didn't realize that was a Paul Pope.
Yeah, that was Paul Pope talking about his troubles with DC.
And when that came out, it was a huge.
Oh, huge! Yeah, because that is such a like a. I don't know. It's almost like a lightning rod for like a pointless argument, is like whether or not comics should be for kids, whether or not they can be for kids anymore, whether or not there's any point in trying to make comics for kids, because it's not like kids are going to buy them. They're all too busy playing video games and hula hoops and whatever else kids are into these days.
Earlier you said
Arts, I think.
earlier you said that you didn't think Battling Boy should be called a kid's book and it's more of just like an any ages book.
Mm-hmm.
I would disagree with
You
that.
would, okay.
I would, because I think it's definitely made for kids, and it just happens to be that this guy is so damn good that snobs like us, our snobs can look at it and be like, this is amazing, and get past the fact that it's made for kids who are like 12, 13 years old.
That's a good point, and I think maybe I misspoke when I said that, because I mean it's very much a kid's adventure book, and the perspective, it's a 12-year-old kid. His struggles are all kid struggles. It's all about growing up into being an adult. It's all about dealing with authority figures. It's all about overcoming your challenges. So yeah, I guess in that sense, really, you can say it's a kid's book, in that it is a book written for kids to help them like see the world as they see it, or So yeah, that's a good way.
But the fact that it's Paul Pope, and it's Paul Pope distilled down to the best of what he does.
Mm-hmm.
It's that mixture of Astro Boy, Kamandi, Mobius, all coming together in this clean, very polished final product is why we can look at it and be like, this isn't just for kids. I like
right.
this.
It's a work of art.
Yeah, the art is awesome. And it's like the storytelling, and it really, it comes together very well.
It's just such like it's like I feel like a snob when I talk about Paul Pope, and that's probably because I am a little bit of a snob. But
like you said, nobody's ever really heard of it. So.
Right, I would play that card. But it's there's such a fine art quality to all of his comic pages. Like, it's just not cheap and trashy the way you see a lot of regular comic books. And I know that's kind of a generalization, but
It's really fascinating. I think it's one of the things that, as loose and rough as his work is, it just conveys a love and a knowledge of comics that's like really deep. And I don't know. I often, I'm a pretty big Paul Pope geek, I guess. I think about why do I enjoy his stuff so much. Because it's not like in terms of sheer the amount of technical stuff jammed on a page. It's not Katsuhiro Otomo or something like that. Mm-hmm. But it's so good at doing what it needs to do to convey what he wants to convey. Like, it just seems very intentional, and just like he loves making comics well.
There's a lot of energy on his pages. Mm-hmm. And I also love that it's very unapologetically classic comic book style and tropes. Like, there are sound effects all over these pages, and they're all drawn into the art. So there's a lot of there's a lot of click clacks and swats and whams.
Even the dialogue is very old school. Like, characters talking to themselves when they're fighting the monsters and stuff. And Battling Boy's dad is very New God Thor, the way he talks.
For sure. But I think. Oh, go ahead.
I think that a lot of the stuff that he's doing is that distilling the comic book language to a perfect product. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at the lettering and the sound effects integrated into it, it has to be there. If it wasn't there, it'd be wrong. It'd be lacking. But because he uses comic book and cartoon language in such a way that it feels natural, and the way that he does it seems so like a virtuoso. Like, he just knows it has to be there. And obviously he's taken years and years of perfecting his craft to get there, but it does seem so natural. He just does it.
Yeah, I would agree. I've said this before, maybe not on this podcast, but I'm a huge fan of Jack Kirby. And one of the things we have talked before in various episodes of this podcast is the unique storytelling that comic book allows, and how that sort of evolved and developed into this very specific style of economy of storytelling. Like the way characters, a lot of times in superhero comics, the reason characters are very direct and overly dramatic is because you got to get the most out of a single panel before you move on to the next panel, because you got to cram it all into 22 pages for that month's story. It wasn't until relatively recently, like in the last 10 years, that they really started letting comics stories grow beyond just like the 22 pages. 15 years now. I already forgot what year it was. In the 2000s. But I've always said one of the things I love about Jack Kirby, if you go back and read Jack Kirby comics, and this is definitely true of Kamandi, Jack Kirby has a way of just drawing like a perfect single panel, and it's got so much information conveyed in it. You could take that panel and separate it from the page, and it would like just blow it up as a single image, and it would just be so cool and interesting. There's still storytelling going on within a single panel, as opposed to just panel to panel to panel storytelling. And I think Paul Pope really captures a lot of that too. Like, there's a lot of just like single panels that are just cool. Like, they just look good.
I agree.
I'd say when you're talking like that, first thing I think of is the big boss fight, that first boss fight, with the giant monster destroying the town.
Humbaba.
Yeah. Oh man, and such a bizarre creature. That's Kirby. I mean, that character design is just bizarre. And
I would say like all the names of the monsters were very Kirby too. Like Humbaba and what is the main bad monster called? Sadisto.
Sadisto, yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? Nails and
Coil.
What was the other guy?
Coil.
Nails and Coil. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that all kind of comes into the whole like language, the comic book language. Like the characters, like even all the names, like the city's name, Archopolis, which sounds kind of like Acropolis, you know, like it's
it had a very mythology.
Exactly,
like
yeah.
The whole book did.
A lot of these names are just like slight variations on words and things that are already in your like subconscious, like already in your regular vocabulary. You know them.
I think Humbaba is actually directly from Gilgamesh, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's a monster from
That
Gilgamesh.
would not surprise me.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I think if you look at the names like Sadisto, Nails, and Coil, instantly you're not thinking these are the good guys.
Right.
They're simplified to be tropes, to be like, oh, that's a bad guy name. You know. I think that's totally intentional, because everything in that book is intentional.
Right.
It's very black and white. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although Haggard West kind of is out of that. If you think Haggard, you don't. I guess you think he's old, Haggard.
Yeah, I think.
It kind of has like a pulp adventure feel to it. The name Haggard.
The West.
Yeah.
The West part does. Yeah. Like Johnny West or something like that would be the same sort of idea. But
do you think there's?
You don't think like this guy's a superhero in this world.
Well, but I mean, I think you kind of do, because you think of somebody that's haggard, like you think of what that means, like somebody who's like beaten,
like a Batman.
Yeah, you think of somebody who's like been fighting for a long time, and that's
battle hardened,
and that's who the character is, Haggard West. Do you also think that the name West might be kind of an allusion to Adam West, the first Batman?
I'll be honest, I completely pictured Adam West's voice when I read that character's dialogue.
Because, it was when he called his car the Westmobile.
Yeah, that was it for me, too.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, man, it's basically like Adam West as, like, a classic pulp adventure instead of a campy adventure, you know? I definitely kind of got that feel. I mean, Haggard West is such a Batman trope. Like, we've been talking a lot about Paul Pope's art, but let's talk about the story a little bit. Because, as we said, there's a lot of superhero-style adventure going on here. And you have your two main characters, not the two main characters, I should say the two main archetypes of the two different types of superheroes. You have your Batman archetype, which is Haggard West. He is a human being who uses gadgets and his intelligence and
kind of like a Rocketeer.
Exactly, he's like a Rocketeer, kind of that kind of like two-fisted justice adventurer. And then you have our main character, Battling Boy, who is this super-powered kid who has the weight of responsibility to use these extra powers to help other people. And that's basically your Batman and your Superman. Slight variations on them. It's twisted around a little bit, but that's basically the archetypes and how they fit. And I just think that it just plays really well. I guess part of the reason I'm so impressed by it is because, let's be honest. Kevin, you've been going to comic book shows for a long time. I've been making comics for like 5 years. I've been reading comics for even longer. How many Batman and Superman ripoffs or archetypes have you seen since the creation? Even just since the creation of Batman and Superman. There's a million of them.
Yeah, and I think we've seen every version of that where, in this version they're, they used to be cops and they used to be partners or this and that, but nothing's really original.
Exactly.
Nothing comes off as like this is thought out and intentional. It's more of like Batman's cool, Superman's cool. Let's do that.
Right.
And I don't get that out of Battling Boy. I feel like he says, okay, these are archetypes that I can play with, but I'm not, he's not ripping them off in the way that you'll see some of these guys come out, at shows with their new books that just know there wasn't an ounce of creativity in some of these books.
Well, even just like two characters that I think are good characters, but they're obviously an homage to the specific archetype. The authority characters, Midnighter and Apollo. That's basically like your Batman and your Superman. Like the hook though is that they're gay, and they're in a relationship.
Yeah, and it's more of an adult comic, and they can do things that Batman and Superman can't.
Right.
At least with the editorial setup they have at DC.
But Battling Boy, they're playing with the archetypes the way a lot of people play with, or I should say, Pope is playing with these archetypes the way people have been doing for decades upon decades. But it still feels so fresh. And maybe that's just because that's just my disposition. I just like throwbacks to, pulp comics. But I also feel there's something to a lot of people when they try to emulate Jack Kirby, they don't actually really try to emulate this kind of Jack Kirby. People don't emulate the Fourth World Jack Kirby or the Commandi Jack Kirby that much. Usually they're just emulating the Marvel comics that are already popular. So it's maybe this is a little too judgmental, but I think people just kind of emulate the idea of Jack Kirby or what the Jack Kirby characters became, as opposed to what Jack Kirby was actually doing with them.
Well, he was creating mythology.
Exactly, yeah. Jack Kirby was creating mythology. If you've ever read the original Thor stuff that Kirby was doing, it's pretty cool.
Well, he created all the Celestials and all the other far out science fiction space stuff.
The Eternals stuff.
The Eternals, which is awesome.
That was all within Thor,
comics.
wasn't it?
I'm sorry, what was that?
That was all within early Thor, wasn't it? It started out there.
I'm trying to remember how much of that was in early Thor and how much of it came later, because I think Jack Kirby bounced back and forth between Marvel and DC.
Actually, I think the Eternals came after
it was
because it was kind of him trying to do it over with Marvel.
Exactly. You think he was trying to stick it to DC and just be like, well, I'm still in my space god mode, so I'm going to do the Eternals at Marvel since I don't have the Fourth World anymore.
But the origin myth in Eternals, if you ever get the chance to see it, it's awesome. Just the way he lays it out of there being humans, the sort of subhuman rejects, and then the Eternals, who are these immortal gods, and then they were all put on these Earths, and you see it actually in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. There's a reference to the Eternals right away. I can't think of the name of the giant gods that seed the Earths with these creatures.
The Celestials, yeah.
Yeah. that, I mean, that's. I don't think he was just trying to stick it to
right. Yeah.
DC with that. I think this was the story that he had to tell.
Yeah, it's just where he was at. That's what he wanted to do. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's why I like have such a respect for Paul Pope, because I think he gets that, and he, like, I don't want to like belabor the point, but I feel like he is somebody that just really is emulating what was like really great and sort of misunderstood about Jack Kirby, I think.
Have you ever read American Barbarian by Tom Scioli?
I have not read that, no.
So at that point, Tom Scioli's work, I mean, he's definitely looking at Kirby as being,
sure.
This guy is the guy.
I'm a big fan of Godland, Tom Scioli and Joe Casey. But I haven't read this other one here.
Yeah, American Barbarian is, I think, where Scioli does his Kirby. You know, like, it's as Kirby as it can get.
That's true. And, I maybe I'm being a little unfair. I don't mean to imply that like nobody gets Jack Kirby and Paul Pope as like the prophet on the mountain who is, you know.
No, I would say like you have you have two very different like reactions to Kirby there with Paul Pope or Tom Scioli.
Yeah.
Where Paul Pope is taking the ideas, and Tom Scioli is more taking the aesthetic. What it looks like.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I feel like part of what makes Pulp's storytelling strong, and in the same way what made Kirby's storytelling strong, is that and I'm making an assumption here, but they seem to have, when we talk about archetypes, like a pretty strong understanding of not just like Batman and Superman, but like, you know, Gilgamesh, Achilles, Hercules. Like, they seem to be tapping into older ideas about heroes than just like what looked cool in a Batman comic.
Yeah.
Or what looked cool. And I can't really back that statement up. It's kind of a weighty one, but I just get the feeling that when I hear Paul Pope interviewed, he seems very literate in terms of not just comics, but the tradition of heroes and what makes them good. So.
I would agree.
Yep. I think you also hear this guy talk, like if you catch an interview with him, he drops references for names without like thinking about it, because he internalizes his influences and he internalizes what he likes and remembers it and retains it and is able to put it back into his work and into his persona.
I think that's what makes it seem so effortless for him. Like, it's just, like, I guess, you know, what this comes down to, part of the reason why I like Paul Pope, and I say this on lots of podcasts, is that one of the things I really like about comics, or a comic author, is if they have a very strong, unique, personal voice. Paul Pope has a very strong, authorial voice. Like, not just in his writing, but in his art. Like, you look at a Paul Pope page, or you read a Paul Pope book, and it is a Paul Pope book. There are people that might be kind of doing something similar, but, like, nobody does Paul Pope the way Paul Pope does Paul Pope.
And he did it
and
first.
He did it first, exactly, yeah.
Or at least combined it, synthesized it in a way that made it
right.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
Paul Pope is the best Paul Pope you can possibly have.
He's the only Pope that I'll worship.
Well said.
For $10.99, the best Pope money can buy.
But I think a lot of that comes like with what you're saying, Kevin, with the way he just internalizes everything. It's just who he is. Like this comic, everything about this is just so pure. Like, this is who Paul Pope is. Like we.
And he worked on it.
Yeah, that's because that's the other thing is how long had he been doing it? He'd been talking about it for a long time. Well, I mean, actually, it would have been, as I understand it, it would have been right after he got rejected for Commandi. Basically, because that would have been like 2006, 2007, I think.
Yep.
And
that's
the whole reason he. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
It first went up on his blog like 2006, saying this is what's next.
Yeah.
And and this is what it is, and then radio silence for quite a while.
7 years, then, if it came out in 2013.
Yeah, it came out in 2013.
That's a long time.
But he straight up said that if DC had given him Kamandi, we wouldn't get Battling Boy, because he would have been doing all this stuff in Kamandi. So that's like, I guess that's one of those like, what's the word I'm thinking of here? Blessing in disguise, you could say.
Yeah.
Right.
As a Kamandi fan, though,
well,
it's kind of sad.
it's a little bitter. It's a tough pill to swallow. It's because I'm a huge Kamandi fan, and I want more Kamandi.
That's weird to me that like just thinking about that, because what year did Jeff Smith's Captain Marvel come out? Because that was very, very much aimed at kids.
Yeah, that would have been also around the same time, maybe 2004 to 2006, I want to say.
Okay. It just seems weird that they would I mean, Jeff Smith, who is obviously a very big, he writes kids comics, and they were okay with him taking Captain Marvel, who's not a real well-known character, but probably more so than Kamandi.
Oh, for sure, more so than Kamandi.
They're letting Jeff Smith have him and write his kids' comics.
Jeff Smith was a totally different quantity back then.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Smith printed money.
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
The Bone collected giant Bible had just come out. Scholastic had been reprinting the Bone in color.
In color, yeah, you're right. That all came out. That was all coming out at the same time, and I didn't.
And they're like, they saw him, and they're like, yeah, whatever you want to do, man. Make money
and
for
I think,
us.
That's
Pope didn't have
exactly.
That
Pope
time.
didn't have that cachet.
That's very true.
Yeah, in 2007 is when the Monster Society of Evil came out. So it was even after Pope got rejected for Kamandi. But like Kevin was saying, Jeff Smith just had he had a little bit more clout.
Right.
Well, I've got nieces and nephews, like some that aren't even into comics, and they know Bone, and they've read it, they have it, and the same's not true for Pope at that time. It's still not true now. I don't think.
No, it's not.
I mean, it's this one shot into the kids market. And I think if kids can read it, they
I
love
really
it.
think that's this kind of gets into like business, corporate politics, because I don't know anything about that. First Second is a nice little comic book company, but the power of Scholastic is what made Bone like the powerhouse, the huge thing that it is.
I'll tell you, the other thing about Bone was, and I don't want to get off on a tangent about Bone here, but the other thing about Bone that I think helped it reach a wide audience is when I was a kid and Bone was first coming out, they printed it in Disney Adventure magazine.
Exactly, yeah.
And that was a really widely read magazine. So
I had no idea about that.
Yep.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that Battling Boy, if Scholastic put out like a version of this that was available at like kids' school book fairs and whatnot, I think kids would like it.
Well, Pope talked a lot about promoting Battling Boy at book fairs. I don't know how well it's been working out. I haven't read numbers or anything, but he was pushing pretty hard to sort of break into that very specific kids market, school library.
As you established, Kevin, that's who this book is for.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I haven't really actually looked at it too closely either, because I'm actually pretty detached from society.
Publishing wise, yeah. I'm in the same boat. I don't have much interest in working with publishers anymore. I just want my own stuff to be out on as I feel comfortable with it. I think that's what Paul Pope did for so long, and eventually, he's teaming up with First Second here, but he's selling the book.
Exactly. Yeah, it's him doing it for sure.
I had never even heard of First Second before Battling Boy came out. Yeah, there's been a couple good releases from First Second since, and they seem to be really determined to put out good books, but they're small. They don't have a lot of clout in the publishing world.
But that Battling Boy graphic novel that Aaron let me borrow that I read was a nice hardcover with a really nice dust jacket, and the paper is really good quality. It's a great
printed book. Yeah. I also like the size of it too.
It's in digest.
Yeah.
You got a digest version?
Well, it's not quite as small as it's
a little small, a little bigger
than digest. Yeah, But like I think again, as a supposed to be a book for kids, I think it's a perfect size for them. You know,
you wouldn't want some kid like lugging around a 20 by 30 oversized edition in the backpack.
Some giant heavy brick. I mean, I would love to read it. I would love that, but this is a very nice package.
You think someday there'll be an IDW artist edition of this book? I think there has to be.
It depends. It depends on how long it's going to take for us to get the next Battling Boy book.
That is.
I was going to say, is that first graphic novel that I read? Is that the only one that's out right now?
It's the only one that's out, and
there's a prequel that came out.
Yeah.
The Rise of Aurora
West.
Haggard.
Aurora
West. Yeah, you got it. But it's a different artist.
Okay.
Right. It's fleshing out his
but it was a different artist.
Right.
Yeah. Right. The artist who did it was super talented. Really, really good stuff. I don't have his name in front of me, but really good. It's just not pulp.
Right. Now, I actually haven't read that book. Alex, I know you have it. Kevin, have you read it?
It is on my queue.
It's on my queue too.
Yeah, I have it. It's sitting over in my kitchen right now as like the next book I'm going to read.
The artist of the Rise of Aurora West is David Rubin, who I'm not really familiar with apart from that, but you know,
it's more cartoony. It's black and white, so that's also a trade-off.
Well, it definitely just has like a more of a look of like a traditional manga book almost. Not necessarily in his art style, but just in the presentation of it. Like you said, it's in black and white.
Smaller.
It's smaller. Yes,
slightly smaller.
It's more of a traditional digest.
Yeah. But it's
another
neat.
one of those.
It's neat.
It is neat. Another one is due, I think, in a month actually.
And that's going to be Rubin too.
Story. Yeah, same artist. Pretty soon here.
Well, for a second, we'll have another purchase.
Yep.
I'll buy one more book.
Yeah, if they can keep pumping out Battling Boy and Battling Boy accessories, I will buy them all.
They need to work. As disconnected from publishing as I am, and as you talk about you being, if they could get a distribution deal with Scholastic, oh my God, that would make that
like
company.
I said, the power of Scholastic, and apparently, as I understand, it's like difficult to get in with Scholastic because they're very picky about, you know, what they're going to push, and I can understand why. But
all it takes is a few angry moms.
Exactly, yeah. And to be perfectly frank, I mean,
I don't think Battling Boy had anything that's any more questionable than some of the darker stuff that's in Bone.
Oh,
I mean,
certainly
Bone
not.
Pretty freaking dark.
Yeah, no, that's a totally. That's Bone is like your Lord of the Rings, and it gets dark at times. Where
it's funny because I remember when I was reading the Disney Adventures version, they edited it a lot. Like they edited some questionable stuff out. Like the first time Bone sees Thorn, and she's like bathing in the hot spring or whatever. They totally edit that scene out of the Disney Adventure. Yeah, like I mean, it's in there, but like there's specifically a scene where she like takes off her pants and like Bone's hat catches on fire, and he rolls down the hill, and then they talk or whatever. That scene's completely omitted from the Disney Adventure one, which I always thought was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean like stuff like that, and I mean Scholastic's okay with that, and I think Battling Boy would be a good fit for Scholastic, but that's just me.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want it to take away from First Second, but I'm just saying if they could get into actual like book fairs at schools. I know it's in libraries. I see it at my library. So, I mean, it exists out there for kids. It's just probably not the easiest thing for them to find.
Man,
I could be wrong. There could be this huge
right
audience,
underground Battling Boy audience
of like 12-year-olds that are just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, I would like another Battling Boy book. It's kind of, I don't know. Do you think it's a fast read?
I read it in about a half hour yesterday. So yeah, it's a pretty fast read.
Well,
It was a one sitting
Exactly,
book.
yeah, it's a one sitting book. And I mean, I think it's designed like that on purpose. Again, you know, if you're saying it's for kids, and there's a lot of like I like a lot of the wordless pages. There's just a lot of good energy and, you know, just action and sound effects. You know, you can take it all in really easily.
Should we talk about Battling Boy, like what he can do?
You know, I was
like,
gonna bring that up. Yeah, we didn't really talk about like his powers and how they work, because I think that's just like the coolest, most inventive thing. I was so impressed by that.
It's very childlike, like the whole he wears a shirt with an animal and then he has the powers.
It's a different totem. Like
right.
Exactly. That's I don't know how I could say that it's not for kids because.
Yeah. Well, like little kids who are like, this is my lucky shirt.
Yeah.
Right.
And I need to wear this shirt in order to get through today. Like,
and also like when he first shows up on Earth and he sees Humbaba and he's like, well, I'm gonna put on my T-Rex shirt. 'Cause T-Rex is big. He'll kick his butt. And that's like totally like a kid mentality. It's like, oh, I'll go fight this monster as a T-Rex because T-Rex is a big monster too.
Yeah, it's so cool and it's done so well. I love that. I love when he fights Humbaba with the T-Rex shirt. Like, he's trying to figure out. He's like, okay, T-Rex has weak arms, so I got to use my legs. Like, that's all really like inventive action and fighting. I love the scene later on when he's trying to kind of like figure out all his shirts and he's trying them on and he's talking to the different the fox and the elephant. Oh man,
yeah, that's a really cool
is a great scene, and it sort of it just gave you a little bit of a taste. You know, it just kind of grew into this, like, there's so much potential going on. Like, I want to see so much more of this. Like
when he's talking to the fox, and the fox is like, oh, we can just not fight monsters and go do whatever we want. That'd be a lot more fun.
He's kind of trying to trick him into just, like, having fun instead.
Right.
Yeah, it's just so... It's so cool. It's inventive. I say that word a lot, but...
So I just counted out. Is there 11 shirts? I'm counting it on
13,
the page.
I believe.
13.
Which, because that also ties in. That's his age. He's gonna turn 13.
Oh yeah. And I also like when he's talking about them. He's like, oh, these are all awesome. And he's like, a mouse. What's a mouse gonna do?
I'm sorry. He has 12 shirts, which is his age. He's 12 years old. He has 12 shirts. Yeah, and the field mouse.
Very cool.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, a field mouse, and you never get to see. I mean,
well, I'm sure at some point that's going to crop up, and he's going to use it.
It's probably going to be the most important
Exactly.
one.
Yeah.
Right. Something very significant.
Yeah, it's cool.
So cool.
It's very cool. I'm so excited to see like where it goes and just more of it. Maybe this is just a little kid in me talking, but it's cool.
Well, I also think, like, I wonder if there's a connection, because Paul Pope was doing a lot of fashion design at the time.
Yeah.
And prior to that. I wonder if there's a connection to that sort of, like, clothing as being the source of power. I don't know, I might be reaching here, but I think the guy's definitely interested in fashion.
Sure.
Well, and if he's anything like me when he's doing his other job and he's thinking about writing and, like, I don't know, like, he's, like, looking at T-shirts and like, it'd be kind of cool if, like, you know, this T-shirt gave me like powers, like whatever's on the picture or whatever, and then just went on and incorporated that into his story.
His real life sort of like, or his commercial work was bleeding into his personal work.
Right.
I think that's inevitable. Just like how all of my superhero characters are secretly fry cooks.
Or how you named a bunch of villains in Zero's Heroes after things that were on the Bert's Chuckwagon menu.
Yeah.
Big Texas and Hot Tamales.
There's a couple of villains that are named after food entrees.
King Barbecue.
Nice.
It happens.
I always have that, I have to fight that knee-jerk when I'm writing a character. What's he do? Oh, he does this. Oh, I do that. Like,
yeah.
Right. That's my job. That's not the character's job. Well, I know what that is, and I know how to do it.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
It'd be easy.
I don't want to do research.
Well, there's a reason why all of the protagonists of Stephen King's novels are all writers. I mean,
right.
This is what writers...
It's easier to put yourself in there.
Right, what you know.
Well, that becomes sort of like this, like, infinite loop. Writers writing writers writing writers.
Yep.
It's all very meta.
Well, he had what was the Mist. The Mist, the character in the Mist was a book cover painter.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a little variation.
Slight
there.
variation.
So, like, the main guy in It was a writer, the main guy in The Shining is a writer,
Just likes
Dark
writers.
Half. Yeah, he does.
I think totally off on that tangent. I think writers are a good, like, especially for novels. Writers think.
Oh yeah, they're good. They've got a
they
really
overthink
good.
things. They got an internal monologue that might be interesting to hear.
Right.
They might be a little crazy.
They're very suited toward horror too. Writer protagonists are.
Yeah, that's the Lovecraft connection. But I can see that we are kind of nearing the end of Kevin's time here. I know he's got to get going.
Yep. I gotta go print magazines.
Yes. So I think we've, as succinctly as possible, I think we've hit on all the high notes of why Battling Boy is just such an amazing comic. And
we ended in a way that we had to get the T-shirts
yes,
in there.
exactly. No, you're right. There's no way you
Right.
could talk about the book without talking about that. So it was good. We didn't really get to talk a lot about the monsters, but maybe the next book in the next 7 years or so.
Hopefully. By 2020.
Fingers crossed.
By 2020, we'll be able to do it.
Hopefully people
podcast.
still
We'll talk about the monsters.
Hopefully
then.
people still listen to podcasts and they don't just
Hopefully podcasts are still a
yeah,
thing.
exactly. Or maybe they just have all of my thoughts just downloaded directly into their brain. Who knows? Who could say?
I hope that doesn't happen.
You don't want that. Anyway, so I think we're going to call it for this episode. Thank you.
I think I want to do this again.
Oh, you
sometime.
definitely will, Kevin. We'll be figuring this out because we got to talk about Commandi, and we got so many books to talk about. But yeah, we'll be doing Commandi. We're gonna do Alex. You're gonna do this too, by the way. We're gonna talk about Asterius. Whether you want to or not. Alex, you're the only other person I know who's read this book. We're going to talk about Asterius Polyp by David Mazzucchelli.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
we will be doing that for sure.
I'll need to reread it.
It'll be more of a depressing talk.
Exactly. Won't have quite the adventuring enthusiasm that Battling Boy has.
Right. Less childlike energy and more I don't know.
Depressed.
Adult depression. Ugh. But we're going to talk about it. So definitely.
Oh, it'll be good. And it's a beautiful book,
fun.
so that'll be fun.
It is.
So guys, Kevin, Tim, Alex, thank you all for being on the show. Thank you everybody for listening. We're going to go ahead and do our little outro here. My name is Aaron Walther. You can find me on Facebook, and you can also find me on Twitter at AAWALTHER. I believe I said that correctly. At AAWalther on Twitter. You can find comics that I have written at newhavencomics.com. And you can find comics that Kevin has written with me, and he has also drawn them. He does most of the work on these comics. Relative Space, which is found in Science Hero. This anthology is available on Comixology. Just type in Science Hero. You can find it should pop up. And you can find new episodes of this very podcast at comicdna.podbean.com. Kevin, where can people find more of your work?
I keep everything I've ever done since college is still up on a blog spot. So it's at kevinbandtconcepts.blogspot.com. And I won't let that blog die. I should have years ago, but if you go, there's hundreds of pages of stuff. Some of it good, some of it bad. But that's how you can keep up with what I'm working on.
All right. Tim, Alex, you guys want to put yourselves out there for all the internet stranger weirdos to find you?
Oh, my home address can be found.
My phone number is really the only thing I've got out there is the Celestial can be found at newhavencomics.com, which I'm a writer on. Work with various artists on that, and that's really about it for me. I don't really have a blog or anything like that.
Well, all right.
I don't have anything complete enough to direct anyone to, but snippets of my work can be found peppered throughout some of Aaron's stuff.
That's true. Alex did the original character designs for Zero's Heroes. He didn't draw any of the comics, but the characters, the original designs are Alex's designs.
That was more than 10 years
Can
ago.
you believe that?
That was a very long time ago.
That's pretty weird. Huh.
And someday Alex and I are going to do a comic called Knockout. Someday. You can find what...
I've seen a few pages from Knockout, and I would be very excited to see that.
You can go to aaronwalther.com, and all 8 pages, I think, 8 pages that Alex drew are available to see on my personal website, aaronwalther.com. And if you like them, if you think they're cool, email me so that I can just keep showing them to Alex and harassing him to just draw more and do more, because Alex needs to make more comics. Gotta happen, buddy.
It was great meeting you guys.
Yes,
I gotta bounce out
Kevin,
of here.
thank you for sticking around. We will see you later.
See ya.
And I guess we're going to call it, actually, to everybody else. Thank you again for listening to the show. We will see you all next time.